me, math is all play. And actually, that reminds me of a story about a play. Let's check it out and see playing and math all together. Well, Lindsay, Lewis, Sally, and Matt each brought 7 guests to the school play. Here's our challenge. Let's figure out how many guests in all did they bring to the school play. All right, so how many people brought 7 guests? Well, Lindsay, Lewis, Sally, Matt, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 groups of 7. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is we want to actually find 4 groups of 7. Of is my cue for multiplication, and so I see what I want to find here is 4 times 7. That is the question. So after all these words are understood, we see we can write it in math by saying we want to figure out what 4 times 7 is. Now, we could actually model this if we want, because what we need here is we need to have 4 groups, one that represents Lindsay, one that represents Lewis, Sally, and Matt, and then each group has 7 things inside of it, the 7 guests they bring. And so we can actually model that quite nicely, actually like this. So this is a model for what we're looking at. So we have the 4 groups. They represent the people. So Lindsay, Lewis, Sally, Matt. And then these 7 counters inside each one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those 7 counters represent the 7 friends that Lindsay brought, the 7 friends that Lewis brought, the 7 friends that Sally brought, the 7 friends that Matt brought. And I want to know how many friends are there all together, which means I want to actually just add up all these counters. And so there's lots of ways of doing this. Let's just be a little sneaky. Let's notice that there's actually maybe an easier thing we can do first. Because what I notice here is, what if I just look at these 2 groups? Now, if I just look at those 2 groups I just lassoed there, that would actually be 2 of the 7. So I have 2 groups of 7. And so if I want to find out how much is there, I would just have to look at 2 times 7, which is actually an easier question. And then notice that what is here is exactly the same as what is here. And so then if I take my answer to here and answer to here, I want to look at them together. That means add them. So here we're seeing a very sneaky way of multiplying by 4. One way to multiply by 4 is to first just multiply by 2, and then take the answer and just double it. So that's a really sneaky thing to do. So 2 times 7, what's that? Well, we have 7 plus 7. That's 2 times 7, and so we see in this case 14 counters, and so we see that 2 times 7 is 14. Well, that means automatically, since this is the exact same count, that here I see 2 times 7, and that's immediately 14. And so now, once I know 2 times 7, I can find 4 times 7 by just doubling my answer. That's just a fancy way of saying take 14 and add 14. And 14 plus 14 is 28. And so now we just made a discovery that, in fact, 4 times 7, in fact, is 28. And we could check that for ourselves if we want to by actually counting all these counters. We'd have 7 here, and then 14, and then if we keep counting all the way down to here, we'd see a total of 28. So how many guests were there? We now see there were, in fact, 28 guests that these 4 people brought, and that's because each of the 4 people brought 7 friends. And so we see, in fact, that we can first find 2 times 7, 14, and then double our answer. And that will work no matter what the number is that we're multiplying by 4. So if you ever want to multiply something by 4, you can first multiply that number by 2, which is actually much easier, and then just double your answer. Double your answer, double your fun. Have fun thinking about math, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, so let's do some multiplication practice. Here we have a word problem. It says 2 students are in a play. Each of the students has 3 costumes. How many costumes do they have in all? Let's think about what we need to do. I know by reading the question that I want to find out how many costumes do they have in all, right? And all generally means I'm going to add, and I can add, okay? But there is a different way I can multiply. In the problem, it tells me I have two students, and each student has three costumes. So one thing I can do is I can draw equal groups to show me how many they have in all. I'm going to draw two groups, one for each student. One, two. Here's student one, and here's student two. Okay? Each one of the students has a total of three costumes. That means in each group, I'm going to draw three costumes or three counters, three for each student. Student one has three. One, two, three. There's one, two, three costumes in student A. Student B, or student two, also has three. One, two, three. Now that I have my picture drawn of equal groups, I think of it as I have two groups of three, right? Two groups of three. So my picture shows is 3 plus 3, because I have group 1 has 3, group 2 has 3. How many do I have in all? I have a total of equals 6 all together. Okay? Now, that's writing it as addition. I can also take this and write it as multiplication. To do that, I start with the number of groups that I have. I have 1, 2 groups times how many in each group? 1, 2, 3 in each group. Then I'm going to see how many I have all together. Let's count how many we have all together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So two groups of 3 is just like saying 3 plus 3, because it equals 6. So when I multiply by 2, think of it as adding doubles, right? So let's try this. What if I have, let's look at this example. 2 times 1. Essentially, this is saying I have two groups of 1, or I'm adding 1 plus 1. And 1 plus 1 equals 2. I'm adding 1 2 times. What if I have 2 times 2? It's like saying two groups of 2, so I'm adding 2 2 times. Two groups of 2 is 2 plus 2. The sum of 2 plus 2 equals 4. When I'm multiplying by 2, it's kind of like adding doubles. What if I have two groups of 3? What would my addition equation look like? What two numbers would I be adding together? Right, I would be adding 3 plus 3 because I have two groups of 3. And 3 plus 3 equals 6. Okay, let's do a few more examples. If I have 2 times 4, what addition equation would I write to represent that? Two groups of 4. Right, 4 plus 4 equals 8. Excellent job, friends. Okay, now let's look at another one. If I do 2 times 5, addition sentence, 5 plus 5 equals 10. Let's continue that pattern. Two groups of 6. 6 plus 6 equals how many altogether? 12. How about two groups of 7? 7 plus 7 equals 14, right? So we're just adding the number twice, kind of like adding doubles. Let's get back to some examples. If I have an equation, for example, 4 times 7, and this goes back to the equation, an example that he was telling us. Okay, so I have 4 groups of 7. So I'm going to start with drawing my 4 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my 4 groups. In each group, I'm going to have 7. 7 counters in each group. I'm going to put them in there now. Okay, so I have my 4 groups, and I have 7 counters in each group. Now, I can do this 2 ways. I can add up all together and do 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7, right? Easily, I could do that, right? And I would get the sum of 28. Or I could also take this and break it apart. Instead of 4 times 7, I could break it apart as 2 groups of 7 and 2 more groups of 7. I'm just breaking it apart. And 2 times 7, altogether I have 14, and I have 14 over here. So then I'm just adding 14 plus 14. 14 plus 14 equals 28. So I'm drawing my equal groups. Regardless of how we do it, we always need to make sure that our groups are equal. So our circles or our arrays, however you decide to do it, are equal. If I have 2 times 6, I look at my equation and I start with saying, how many groups do I need? I need 2 groups, 1, 2. And look at our other factor is a 6. That tells me how many counters I need to put in each group. So group 1 is going to get 6 counters. Group 2 is also going to get 6 counters. All right, so now that you have done that, let's see how many we have all together. I have 6 plus 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 altogether. Get out your piece of paper, and I want you to do one with me. Pause this video if you need to go get your piece of paper. If not, let's just keep going. I want you to solve this problem. 2 times 5 equals. Write that down on your paper, pause this video, and solve. Now that you're done, let's check our work. In 2 times 5, I have 2 groups. 1, 2 groups. My second factor of 5 tells me how many counters I'm putting in each group. I'm putting 5 counters in each group. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. My next group also gets 5. Now I can count and see how many I have all together. Is 10. So 2 times 5 equals 10. Try another one. What if I have 4 times 3? Write that down, pause, and solve. Let's check your work. My first factor is 4. That tells me I have 4 groups. My second factor is 3. So I'm going to put 3 counters in each group. Let's solve. I count all the stars in my groups. Altogether, I have 12. So 4 times 3 equals 12. Do another one. 2 times 0 equals. Let's check your work. I had 2 as my first factor, so this tells me how many groups I have. My second factor is a 0, so I'm going to put 0 counters in each group. 0 in the first one, 0 in the second one. Let's see, how many counters do you see all together in your groups? I see 0. This goes back to what we were learning about in math yesterday with that 0 property. Okay, the 0 property of multiplication states that any number times 0 equals 0. So this is a good review for that. Let's do one more problem, and then I want you to practice some on your own, okay? Here's your next problem I want you to write down. 2 times 8. Write this problem down and solve. Let's check our work. 2 times 8. My first factor is 2. That tells me I have 2 groups. 1, 2. My second factor is an 8. This 8 tells me that I put 8 counters in each group. So my first group is going to get 8 counters. My next group is also going to get 8 counters. Now I can count and tell how many counters I have all together. 2 times 8 equals 16. Okay, because 2 groups of 8 equals 16. On the next couple of slides, you're going to get some multiplication problems to work through on your own. Please do them by yourself and draw a picture if you need to solve. If you need help or have any questions, please ask your teachers for help. We are here to help you and want you to do well, so please ask for help.